Quite a while ago now, I set out to make a Sons of Behemat army for Age of Sigmar, and the one thing that I knew was that I did not want them to look anything like the actual Sons of Behemat, and so the cosmic horror Mega-Gargants were born. Now, as we look at the first lad, the monolith that walks is the name that I gave it. It's worth pointing out that these are all supposed to look monstrous and horrific and be things that should not be. The whole backstory for this army is that there is a woman in the mortal realms who sleeps. When she sleeps, she dreams, and sometimes in those dreams she sees horrific, nightmarish, incredibly improbable creatures that manifest themselves in the world. Like, when she dreams them, they become real. And some of them are bloodthirsty and want to cause pain and suffering. Some of them, like the monolith that walks, just has no real awareness of what people are, or what mortals are. So when it approaches a town or a village, having been willed into existence by this unwilling... I'm not sure whether she's a witch, whether it's psychic powers. I haven't really decided on that. And to be honest, I don't think I want to make a full, like, background for her necessarily. I think her being a bit more mysterious is more fun, but it just likes being around people. It's just its presence caused them to go insane and start killing each other, which is of course very Lovecraftian, which is a big part of the inspiration behind these things. But this lad, the monolith that walks, was literally born of me looking at, I think it was Bloab Rotspawn from the Age of Sigmar Nurgle range, and some Ossiarch Bone Reaper scenery, and thinking to myself, hey, could you take that big central column with the armour at the top and make it look like it's growing out of the back of this Nurgle creature? Is that doable? I bet that would be doable. We should try and do that. And it sort of got more and more silly from there, having managed to get the big central column to stand, then deciding that I wanted the other two smaller columns behind it, but at an angle, so it looks like they were growing out, but it had no control over where they were growing. And then the extreme optimism of trying to make an orbiting, like a brazier and a couple of columns around the armour section. I don't know why I did that. It was not clever. It did not survive very long, just using plastic chains, which is what I did the first time. It's heavily reinforced now, so it does work. There was a lot of trial and error. I can't picture things in my head. I don't really see images in my mind's eye. Building these was very, very much a case of trial and error, of putting different pieces next to different sections, trying to work out how to fit things where, because I at no point had a clear idea as to what these were going to be until I started or even finished making them, because not being able to visualise what the end product should be kind of meant that it was a case of, well, these bits will probably work together if I put them together, so let's just keep doing that until something makes sense. Or, I guess, technically doesn't make sense, especially in the case of this particular creation. I do like how the monolith that walks came out, but to be honest, if I was to do something different next time, it would be to not have the two mouths on the back. That's the one thing I'm not particularly sure of. I think probably I would just green stuff over those, or maybe make a bunch of hands reaching out or something. That's the only part of the model that I've kind of grown to not be as big a fan of. I mean, really, all this is that Nurgle kit, part of the Ossiarch Bone Reaper kit, and lots of liquid green stuff to make flesh, and a good amount of texture paint to blur the line between what is skin and what is stone. Really, it was just a case of using both sets of front legs, turning him upside down, and just whacking the column in there. Don't take that out of context. Next up is the Celestial, which was a very, very simple thing to do. I just love the Mutileth Vortex Beast. I absolutely love that model. I think it's fantastic. All the gribbly tentacles sticking out at the front of it, the fact that it already has a bunch of swords stabbed in the back of it, or at least the alternate build for the Vortex Beast has that. I really wanted to use it for something, and I had a friend who had some Stardrake wings that they didn't need, so of course I asked for those. Having put the Stardrake wings on, again using copious amounts of plastic glue, super glue, and liquid green stuff, I realised that I wanted a little bit extra, so I took some wings from another Stormcast Eternal model, I forget which one, a Prosecutor maybe, and placed those in the same sort of area. I just wanted it to look that little bit more unnatural, even though it's already... I mean, the Mutileth Vortex Beast is already one of the most unnatural things that Games Workshop makes. This big, horrible, clawed being with a ton of tentacles sticking out of its face. I mean, the base Mutileth Vortex Beast has got a giant eye of chaos, like, resting on its back, that's made of fire. It's already pretty unnatural, but I really wanted there to be this kind of element of almost like holiness to it. The Stormcast Eternals have got quite an angelic feel, especially the very over-the-top, very straight wings that they've got, and I wanted to use that on this model to make it look like something that maybe at one point might have even been friendly, might have even been good, but now is just a writhing mass of horror. The eagle-eyed among you will note that I actually placed the Stormdrake wings completely incorrectly. I didn't think about the fact that it is reaching up and forwards and that one of the wings should have been further up to really work, which is why a lot more green stuff went into trying to make it look a little bit more natural. Then again, I don't know if it needs to look more natural. I mean, look at it. It's one of the most unnatural things that you could possibly see. This was the first one where I really needed to build up the base as well, because this was nowhere near enough to be a Mega-Gargant. It needed to be taller, and with the base, with the ridiculous built-up base that makes up nearly half the height of the model, well, not quite half, it is about the same size. I think the claw comes up to the top of the head of a standard Mega-Gargant. It might be a teeny bit taller, but that was the one where I was really struggling to work out how to make it the right height. But I actually like having that much base on it. It kind of adds to how imposing it is, I think. Now, this I don't actually have a name for. I've always thought something to do with gateway or archway or something like that, but I haven't quite come up with a decent name for it. Most people who see it just call him Knife Legs, which is not incorrect, to be fair. This was just looking at, again, a random kit. I saw the Bestigor, the Sigor, I think it is, from the Beast of Chaos range, and thought, actually, that's already pretty tall. I bet if you extended the legs a bit, you could probably make that as tall as a Mega-Gargant, easily. And it's kind of slim, it's a bit lanky. Maybe we could do something with that. So I picked the kit up. Then I remembered that I had the big knives, the big swords from the Ossiarch Bone Reaper scenery, and my mind was immediately drawn to the Hellboy reboot. That really naff Hellboy film that really was not good throughout the entirety of it, but it did have one, 30-second section which was absolutely incredible, which was demons invading London, and there was a demon that was walking through and he had knives at the end of his legs and he was impaling people as he walked, and I thought, okay, well, that's the way to increase the height on this thing. We give him knife legs and we'll go from there. Admittedly, it did get slightly out of hand because, well, he's got too many hands and none of them are where hands should actually be, but I really wanted it to look like there was something trying to force its way out of this one, and that kit comes with multiple hand options, so I naturally put the hands in the stomach. If I remember right, there's already a hole in the stomach for something or other, and they just fit in there so perfectly. I had to resculpt some of the detail on them because I damaged them quite badly trying to get them in there, but it worked out okay in the end because it basically looks like it is birthing another version of itself out of its gut as it walks. The hands on top of where the head would be, again, was not really any sort of plan. I just realised I had more hands. I'd already given him an axe for a hand, and I'd already given him claws for a hand, and I still had a few hands left over. So instead of a head, I thought it would be nice if there was this kind of worshipping pose going on for the archway that it's carrying on its other set of arms that are permanently locked above its head and sort of turning into bone and a stone archway. It comes from the Mausoleum kit, that archway, and I don't know, it's definitely one of the weird ones. I keep thinking it's one of the weird ones, but they're all pretty weird, so I don't know if that even means anything in the context of this army. The last one to be made is this one, the Guardian, and this was like a fever dream. I don't know how else to put it. I knew I wanted to do something almost like biblical angel-esque, but not the ones that you see in all the paintings and the drawings where it's some beautiful guy with, lovely fluffy wings. The ones that it actually talks about in the Bible itself, where it's just a bunch of eyes and all sorts of nonsense. And we still had the big chaos orb from the back of the Mutalith Vortex Beast. I knew I had a few wings because I had the really, really over-the-top Stormcast model that's got all the swirly bits at the bottom, the long cloak. He's got a couple of weapons, got wings that are way too big for him. I knew I had that model from the magazine, and so I just thought that maybe it would be fun if someone somewhere became aware of the Dreamer, the one who keeps bringing these things into existence, and dispatched a Stormcast to go and watch her and to deal with her if she started doing it again. And it would have worked, but she corrupts it. She turns it into a freak and a monstrosity when she dreams, and so it's unable to do anything to stop her. And after a while, just becomes so caught up in insanity that the original purpose for it has been lost. It just kind of guards her until it becomes this angelic, really, like, horribly mutilated figure. I mean, we've got a Stormcast body, we've got a couple of mutated limbs, one leg that just turns into a never-ending torrent of blood, spikes erupting out of the neck to support a single giant eye that is just ringed with wings. It was easily the most difficult one to make. Like, easily the most difficult one to make. It's got a bunch of different kits in there, and a lot of the fun came from just experimenting over and over and trying to see what I could get away with, because I think even if I was able to visualise stuff in my head, I wouldn't have necessarily visualised this. So it was just a case of, okay, that works, that doesn't work, no, try something else. Just constantly going back and forth and finding just the right parts to make whatever this thing is. Now, where I went significantly wrong with this particular model is that before I started this project, I never actually bought a Mega-Gargant to do size comparisons with, and I didn't look up the size of the Mega-Gargants. Instead, I just guesstimated how tall they were, which means that of this army, only one is actually Mega-Gargant sized, and that is the Celestial, the one that is on the big built-up base. The thing is that as time went on, I kind of progressively lost the sense of scale that I was dealing with. And so the monolith that walks is bigger than a Mega-Gargant. Knife Legs is also bigger, but by far the worst offender really is the Guardian, because the base for this model actually could have been flat, just about, maybe slightly built up, and it would have been the same height as a Mega-Gargant. The base is at least as tall as the one that makes the shortest model the same height as a Mega-Gargant. So when you put it next to a Mega-Gargant, it is like an extra third of the height. It's so tall, it's absolutely ludicrous, and I don't know what I was thinking. At the end of the day, though, I had an absolute blast building this army, and painting it turned out to be fun in the end. It took a few goes to try and get a colour scheme that I really liked, and I tend to have to just try a few test models before I get anywhere, but managing to find something relatively cohesive that drew everything together, little details like the fact that a lot of the fire and the wings and stuff have a sort of starry galaxy kind of feel to them. It was a lot of fun, and it's probably why I can't stop making them. Like, I've already made 2 more, I have plans for others, and there's just something so satisfying about sitting down with a bunch of kits, aiming to make something mad, and at the end of it, succeeding. That is my Sons of Behemat army. Admittedly, there are 2 more Cosmic Horror Mega-Gargants that were not shown in this video because they're not done. They're not painted yet. And we're going to wait until they're painted and joined by another 2, because I already have ideas for 2 more, which would bring my total of weird Giganto freaks up to 4,000 points, which, admittedly, not many people are going to want to play 4,000 points. But you know what? It's all about just slamming kits together until they form something creepy and weird, and I love doing it, and I can't help but do it, and so if I've got an excuse to do it more, I'm absolutely going to do it more, which you can probably tell was my entire approach to this army, pretty much from the start. How weird can we make it? How big can we make it? Those are the 2 biggest questions, and overall, I'm happy with the answers that we came out with. Let me know what you thought of those in the comments down below. Feel free to click all the things. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you for the next one.